The congressional hearing was supposed to be a routine discussion on gun control policies, but it quickly turned into a fiery showdown between two of Congress's most polarizing figures, Representative Lauren Boebert and Representative Ilhan Omar. Sparks flew as the debate escalated from policy disagreements to personal insults, leaving the room in stunned silence. It began when Omar, a staunch advocate for stricter gun control, passionately argued for the implementation of universal background checks and a ban on assault weapons. "How many more lives must be lost before we act?" she said, her voice filled with urgency. "This isn't about politics. It's about saving lives." Boebert, a vocal proponent of the Second Amendment, immediately fired back. "This is about politics, Representative Omar," she said, leaning forward. "You and your party want to strip Americans of their fundamental rights under the guise of safety. It's nothing but a power grab." The tension in the room was palpable as the two lawmakers stared each other down. Omar responded sharply, "No one is trying to take anyone's rights away. We're trying to prevent tragedies. But maybe you're too blinded by your allegiance to the gun lobby to see that." Boebert smirked, her tone turning sarcastic. "Blinded? No, Representative Omar. I'm grounded in reality. Unlike you, I understand what it means to defend freedom. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Maybe you should focus on that instead of blaming law-abiding Americans." The room gasped as Omar shot back, "Freedom? Tell that to the parents who bury their children after school shootings. Tell them about your so-called freedom. Your stance is reckless and dangerous." Boebert's face hardened. "You know what's dangerous? People like you who demonize millions of responsible gun owners while ignoring the real issues. You don't even understand what it means to be an American." Omar's eyes narrowed. "Anti-American? Is that all you've got? Because I disagree with your dangerous obsession with guns, I'm anti-American? That's pathetic." The exchange continued to escalate, with each woman growing louder. "You don't respect the Constitution," Boebert shouted, pointing a finger at Omar. "You want to rewrite it to fit your socialist agenda." Omar stood her ground, her voice unwavering. "And you don't respect human life. Your refusal to act on gun violence is a betrayal of the people you claim to represent." The heated back and forth left the other lawmakers in the room stunned. Several attempted to intervene, but their voices were drowned out by the two representatives shouting. The chairperson banged the gavel repeatedly, calling for order. "This is a hearing, not a shouting match," they exclaimed, but neither Boebert nor Omar seemed to hear. Social media erupted as clips of the confrontation began circulating online. Within minutes, hashtags like #Boebert vs. Omar and #Gun Control Showdown were trending, with users taking sides in the debate. Some praised Omar for her passionate advocacy, while others celebrated Boebert's unwavering defense of the Second Amendment. Late-night talk shows had a field day with the drama. One host joked, "Well, at least Congress finally found a way to make their arguments louder than the gunfire they're debating about." Outside the Capitol, protesters gathered in support of both lawmakers. Gun rights advocates waved signs that read, "Hands off our guns," while gun control supporters held banners that said, "Enough is enough." The tension mirrored the divide inside the hearing room. As the hearing adjourned, both lawmakers continued their war of words on social media. Boebert tweeted, "I will never apologize for defending the Second Amendment. Freedom isn't negotiable." Omar responded with her own tweet, "Defending freedom means protecting lives, not pandering to the gun lobby." Cable news networks devoted hours to dissecting the confrontation. Conservative pundits praised Boebert for standing up to anti-American rhetoric, while progressive commentators applauded Omar for calling out dangerous inaction on gun violence. The incident reignited the national debate over gun control, with both sides using the confrontation as a rallying cry. Advocacy groups released statements aligning with their respective champions. "Lauren Boebert is a true patriot defending our rights," said one pro-gun organization. Meanwhile, a gun control group stated, "Ilhan Omar is the voice of reason we desperately need in Congress." Despite the backlash, both lawmakers appeared unfazed. In a press conference the next day, Boebert doubled down on her remarks. "I will never back down from defending the Constitution," she declared. "Americans need leaders who fight for their freedoms, not against them." Omar, speaking at a town hall in her district, also stood firm. "This isn't about taking anyone's rights away," she said. "It's about protecting our communities and ensuring no parent has to bury their child because of gun violence." As the debate continued to dominate headlines, the clash between Boebert and Omar became a symbol of the deep divisions in American politics. For their supporters, it was a battle between two women fighting for their beliefs. For their critics, it was yet another example of the toxic partisanship plaguing Washington. Historians would later reflect on the moment as a snapshot of a nation grappling with its identity. For now, however, the fight rages on, with Boebert and Omar as the faces of opposing sides in a bitter and deeply personal debate. As the dust settled from the initial shouting match, the hearing resumed, though the energy in the room remained charged. Omar sat stiffly, her hands folded, her jaw clenched. Boebert leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her defiant smirk still visible. Neither woman looked at the other, but the tension between them was unmistakable. Outside the chamber, reporters scrambled to get statements from lawmakers and witnesses. What we saw today was a microcosm of the nation's divide, one political analyst told the press. Gun control is an emotional issue, and these two representatives are polar opposites in their approach. As clips of the heated exchange spread across social media, reactions poured in from all sides. Conservatives praised Boebert for her unapologetic defense of the Second Amendment. Finally, someone willing to call out the left's anti-American agenda. One tweet read. Progressives, meanwhile, celebrated Omar's courage in confronting Boebert. She's standing up for the countless lives lost to gun violence, another tweet declared. The incident dominated cable news coverage for days. Conservative networks replayed Boebert's fiery line, "You're anti-American," as a rallying cry for their viewers. Progressive outlets countered by highlighting Omar's impassioned plea for stricter gun laws, framing her as a voice of reason amid the chaos. Back in their districts, both lawmakers faced constituents eager to weigh in. At a town hall in Colorado, Boebert was met with roaring applause as she recounted the confrontation. "I'll never apologize for standing up for your rights," she told the crowd, her voice unwavering. "We don't need more government control. We need more freedom." Meanwhile, Omar addressed a packed auditorium in Minnesota, where supporters cheered her determination. "Our communities are tired of the violence," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "We're fighting for a future where safety doesn't depend on who has the biggest gun." The clash sparked a wave of protests across the country. In Washington, D.C., gun rights advocates marched with signs reading, "The Second Amendment is non-negotiable." On the same day, gun control supporters held a vigil for victims of mass shootings, lighting candles and holding signs that read, "Enough is enough." The cultural impact of the incident was undeniable. Memes flooded social media, with one viral post depicting Boebert and Omar as cartoon superheroes battling over a giant constitution. Late-night comedians joined the fray, with one joking, "Forget Congress. These two should settle it in a wrestling ring." As the controversy grew, other lawmakers weighed in. Senator Ted Cruz tweeted his support for Boebert, writing, "Lauren Boebert is a true patriot fighting to protect our freedoms." On the other side, Senator Elizabeth Warren defended Omar, tweeting, "Ilhan Omar is standing up for what's right, common-sense gun reform." The debate reignited discussions about the role of personal attacks in politics. Editorials flooded major newspapers, with some condemning the exchange as a symptom of toxic partisanship. "When our leaders resort to insults, it's the American people who lose," one op-ed read. Despite the criticism, both lawmakers leaned into their roles as symbols of their respective causes. Boebert released a video on social media defending her stance. "The Second Amendment is under attack," she said, her voice firm. "But I won't back down. Not now, not ever." Omar responded with her own video, calling for unity in the fight against gun violence. "We may not agree on everything," she said, "but surely we can agree that every life lost to gun violence is one too many." The fallout extended far beyond Congress. Gun rights organizations rallied around Boebert, with one group releasing an ad featuring her famous line, "You're anti-American." The ad ended with the tagline, "Defend your rights. Defend your freedom." Gun control advocacy groups, meanwhile, used Omar's words to galvanize their supporters. A new campaign featured her impassioned plea from the hearing, "How many more lives must be lost before we act?" International media also took notice, framing the incident as a reflection of America's deep divisions. European outlets criticized the lack of progress on gun reform, while Chinese state media mocked the exchange as a sign of Western dysfunction. As the weeks went on, the confrontation became a defining moment in the careers of both lawmakers. For Boebert, It cemented her reputation as a firebrand defender of conservative values. For Omar, it solidified her role as a leading voice for progressive change. Historians and political analysts began to analyze the incident as a snapshot of America's ideological divide. This wasn't just a clash of personalities, one historian wrote. It was a battle over the very soul of the nation. Even months later, the Boebert-Omar exchange continued to shape the national conversation. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle cited the incident as evidence of the urgent need for dialogue, or, depending on their perspective, the impossibility of finding common ground. For Boebert, the moment became a rallying cry for her re-election campaign. At a rally in Texas, she declared, "I stood up to the radical left, and I'll keep standing up for you." Omar, too, used the confrontation to energize her base. At a fundraiser in California, she said, "We won't let fear and division stop us from fighting for a better future." The incident also inspired a wave of creative responses. Artists painted murals depicting the clash, with one showing Boebert and Omar standing on opposite sides of a cracked Capitol dome. Another featured the words, "Rights versus Lives," emblazoned over a burning American flag. Even Hollywood took notice. Rumors swirled about a potential political drama inspired by the exchange, with one studio reportedly pitching a film titled The Divide. As the nation grappled with the fallout, one thing was clear. The confrontation between Lauren Boebert and Ilhan Omar was more than just a heated debate. It was a symbol of the challenges and opportunities facing America as it navigates an uncertain future. As the days turned into weeks, the fiery exchange between Lauren Boebert and Ilhan Omar showed no signs of fading from public discourse. News networks continued to play clips of the confrontation, dissecting every word and gesture. Analysts called it one of the most explosive moments in recent congressional history, with some labeling it a turning point in the ongoing debate over gun control in America. Inside Congress, the ripple effects were immediate. Lawmakers found themselves under increasing pressure to take sides, with journalists hounding them for comments. Moderates attempted to strike a diplomatic tone, but most either defended Omar's push for stricter gun laws or rallied behind Boebert's passionate defense of the Second Amendment. Speaker Kevin McCarthy was forced to address the incident during a press briefing. "We need to lower the temperature in these debates," he said, his voice measured. That said, Lauren Boebert has every right to defend the Constitution and the freedoms it guarantees. As the fallout from the explosive exchange between Lauren Boebert and Ilhan Omar continued, both representatives leaned into their newfound notoriety. Boebert, undeterred by criticism, embraced her role as a staunch defender of gun rights. At a rally in her Colorado district, she told a cheering crowd, "I will never apologize for defending the Second Amendment. Our freedoms are under attack, and I'm here to fight for you." Meanwhile, Omar took a different approach, speaking at a gun violence prevention event in Minneapolis. Her voice was steady but emotional as she recounted stories from families affected by mass shootings. "This isn't about politics," she said. "It's about the lives we can save if we have the courage to act." The clash between the two lawmakers continued to dominate the national conversation, with advocacy groups seizing the moment to push their respective agendas. Pro-gun organizations launched campaigns featuring Boebert's now infamous line, "You're anti-American." Meanwhile, gun control groups highlighted Omar's passionate plea, "How many more lives must be lost?" The debate spilled onto college campuses, where students organized town halls and protests. In one viral video, a student confronted a local representative, quoting Omar's speech, "Why are you choosing guns over lives?" The clip quickly gained traction online, sparking renewed discussions about generational divides on the issue. Social media remained a battleground, with hashtags like #Boebert vs. Omar and #Gun Rights vs. Reform trending for weeks. Memes ranged from humorous depictions of the two lawmakers as gladiators to poignant images of victims of gun violence, paired with quotes from the hearing. Late-night comedians continued to mine the clash for material. One host joked, "I haven't seen a fight this intense since my uncle tried to ban politics at Thanksgiving." The audience laughed, but the joke underscored the divide gripping the nation. The international response was equally charged. In the UK, newspapers framed the exchange as a stark example of America's political polarization. In Australia, a popular morning show ran a segment titled, "Can America Find Middle Ground on Guns?" Meanwhile, Chinese state media used the incident to criticize Western governance, calling it a symbol of internal chaos. Back in Washington, the incident began to have legislative ramifications. Inspired by the debate, a group of bipartisan lawmakers introduced a new bill focused on improving background checks. While the proposal fell short of the sweeping reforms Omar had championed, it marked a rare instance of cooperation in a deeply divided Congress. Omar cautiously praised the bill, calling it a step in the right direction, but reiterated that more needed to be done. Boebert, however, dismissed the legislation as a slippery slope toward government overreach and vowed to oppose it. Both lawmakers saw their profiles rise in the wake of the confrontation. Boebert's fundraising efforts surged, with donors eager to support her uncompromising stance. Omar, too, saw an influx of donations from gun control advocates who viewed her as a courageous voice for reform. At the same time, the incident drew criticism from some quarters. A prominent political scientist published an op-ed arguing that the clash symbolized the deterioration of civil discourse in America. When our leaders resort to insults, it erodes trust in the democratic process, the piece read. Despite the backlash, Boebert and Omar remained unapologetic. In a fiery interview, Boebert declared, "I'll never back down from defending the Constitution, no matter how much the left tries to silence me." Omar, speaking at a press conference, said, "If standing up for what's right makes me a target, so be it. The fight to end gun violence is too important to ignore." The cultural impact of the incident was far-reaching. A popular artist created a mural depicting the two lawmakers standing on opposite sides of a cracked Capitol dome, their hands raised as if in argument. The piece, titled "A Nation Divided," quickly went viral. Podcasts and YouTube channels dissected the event, with commentators debating its implications for the upcoming election cycle. "This isn't just about guns," one analyst said. "It's about two competing visions for America, one rooted in individual freedom, the other in collective responsibility." As Election Day approached, both Boebert and Omar leaned into their roles as symbols of their respective movements. Boebert's campaign released an ad featuring clips of her fiery remarks during the hearing, paired with the tagline, "Defending Your Rights. Defending America." Omar's campaign countered with an ad that highlighted her advocacy for gun reform, ending with a message, "Courage to lead. Strength to change." Both ads resonated deeply with their supporters, further entrenching the ideological divide. The confrontation also became a rallying point for grassroots activists. In Denver, pro-gun advocates organized a march in support of Boebert, while in Minneapolis, gun control advocates held a vigil for victims of mass shootings. Both events drew large crowds, underscoring the passionate emotions surrounding the issue. In the months that followed, the Boebert-Omar exchange became a defining moment in their careers. For Boebert, it solidified her image as a fearless defender of conservative values. For Omar, it reinforced her reputation as a bold advocate for progressive change. Historians began to analyze the clash as a reflection of America's broader struggles with polarization. "This wasn't just a political argument," one historian wrote. "It was a battle for the soul of the nation." Even as new controversies emerged, the legacy of the Boebert-Omar clash endured. It remained a topic of discussion in classrooms, newsrooms, and living rooms across the country, a symbol of both the challenges and the possibilities of democracy. For Boebert and Omar, the moment was both a burden and an opportunity. It thrust them into the national spotlight, but it also highlighted the deep divisions they were tasked with navigating. Whether they could use their newfound platforms to bridge those divides, or deepen them further, remained to be seen.